There's just something incredibly cute and amazing about this picture. I like this picture. I like this scene. Can we have more of these in the show? Hey everybody out there in YouTube land, Jake of the OneManBand is back again, and welcome to, once again, RWBy In-Depth Look Review Breakdown of Episode 2 of Volume 4, Remembrance. Now, this is the kind of episode that's more my speed. Not so much fighting, but a lot more talking and development of the world. This really allows me to pick apart the world and, you know, try to find hidden little secret things and break things down. So, let's get started. Just how we left off in the first episode, we start off this episode with following Weiss as she has been summoned to her father's study. Now, we see her traverse through her big house, her mansion, her family's mansion. And we must have at least 30 seconds of her just walking through big, empty rooms. We see all these rooms and we see, you know, great, like, foyers, giant suits of armor. We see, statues of Grimm. We see, real expensive looking stuff. And it's all white and it's all clean. Which, I think cleaning a house like that would be very, very difficult. But these scenes help hammer in the feeling of isolation. Weiss feels as though she's completely alone up here in Atlas. No one from her former team is there, and everyone that is there is pretty much a part of her dysfunctional family, if you will. She's pretty much closed herself off in her room for a majority of the time that she's been back. And it's just really sad watching Weiss go through this big, empty house without having any form of human contact until she arrives outside her father's study. It's here that we meet Whitley. I'm pretty sure that's how it's pronounced. That's how it's spelt anyway. Whitley is Weiss's brother. And yes, indeed, we did call that, my friends. So, through the small exchange that Weiss has with her brother, we learn that he has been in Atlas this whole time. He says that he didn't stop growing up when she went away to Beacon, which shows that he has spent his entire life up in Atlas. And it's also from him that we learn that Weiss has stayed in her room a good portion of the time since she's been back, since he hardly sees her and all. He's also been snooping in on his father's business. I'm not sure if it's just the way he was talking or the way he was acting, but this kid really rubs me the wrong way. I mean, I'm not sure what exactly it is, and there are a few theories that I'm gonna get into later on in the video, but he just seems sort of that token spoiled brat, almost creepy vibe from him. As he was eavesdropping on his father's conversation, he states that his father was yelling with someone, to which Weiss automatically assumes it was their mother. And so this opens up two things. One, Weiss's mother is still alive, so it seems that the RWBy story team isn't as Mom Slayer happy as we thought they were. But it also shows that Weiss's mother and father have constantly fought throughout Weiss's life, due to the fact that Weiss automatically jumps to the conclusion that whenever her father is yelling at someone, he's in a yelling contest with her mother. And this would make for a very, you know, fractured, dysfunctional family, especially for someone like Weiss and pretty much all the Schnee children. witnessing their father coming home after a hard day at work, angry, getting in arguments with his wife. That would be very traumatic. We're once again seeing evidence of Weiss's traumatic childhood. Whitley also says that it wasn't their mother that was arguing with their father. She's probably already in the garden drinking. So, this pretty much shows us that Weiss's mother is probably a borderline alcoholic. Somebody who takes to drink rather than trying to deal with their problems. Once again, adding to the fractured and dysfunctional family that Weiss has. I mean, when your father is always angry and trying to manipulate you into doing what he wants, and then you have a mother who's completely detached herself from the real world, you don't really have anyone on your side. Maybe Winter, but Winter's off doing missions for the military, and Whitley, he's just this little shit of a character, to be honest. It seems to me that Whitley was indeed the favorite child of the family. He was the one that his father loved the most and put the most thought into. You know, I'm gonna put the most work into this one. My daughters, I'm gonna use them to the best of my condition, but my son shall be my pride and joy. Whitley kind of comes off that way a little bit, and hopefully we get to see more of his character so that we can form a more concrete reasoning for what he exactly is. Whitley also says that he's never liked Winter, and to be honest, for a sibling to say that about another sibling is really, really cold. I mean, even for the Schnee family, saying that you don't particularly like one of your siblings, that's just heartless. That's just wrong. And I understand that some siblings, you know, have rivalries, disagree with one another, sometimes living arrangements and lifestyles don't agree, but I mean, Whitley's still a child, and for him to not like his oldest sister is kind of just, it kind of just comes out of nowhere, since we haven't really seen anything from Winter that would cause her to be, you know, hated by someone or disliked by someone when Weiss already has such a good relationship with her. So could this possibly mean that Weiss and Winter were more, you know, the two buddies of the kids, while Whitley was kind of ostracized and, you know, outcast from Winter and Weiss's, you know, playings? Or is it possible maybe that Whitley is a half-brother to Winter? Maybe Winter was born of a different mother, maybe Winter and Weiss had a different mother than Whitley, who exactly knows? But the fact of the matter is that Whitley still rubs me off the wrong way, and there may be a reason for that. As we see, as Whitley leaves and as Weiss goes to walk towards her father's study, we get a stunning shot of the family portrait. We see the 5 people that make up the family. We have Papa Schnee, whose name actually turns out to be Jacques. We have Mama Schnee. We have Winter, Weiss, and Whitley. And out of all of them, the 2 males, Jacques and Whitley, are the only ones who seem complacent. The others, the females, they're frowning. They don't seem to be all that happy. And, you know, that might just be the way that the portrait was made, but still, it kind of gives off the impression that maybe, I'm not sure what the word is, my girlfriend used it earlier, but Papa Schnee doesn't exactly have much respect for women, and that would probably come out with him finally having a son. He can finally pool all of his resources and attention into that son and just use his daughters for however he sees fit. Now, as I was discussing this video with my girlfriend, she pretty much came up with 2 theories about the Schnee family. Theories that I never even really thought of. The first one is, what if Papa Schnee wasn't exactly the inheritor of the Schnee Dust Company, but what if he was married into it? As we see, out of all of the Schnees, all of them have white hair in the portrait, except for Papa Schnee. He still has dark black hair. So, as we have seen, one of the Schnee's, their traits are blue eyes and white hair. But Papa Schnee only has white hair now. So what if Papa Schnee married into the family, took on the family's last name, and then made himself to be more like the Schnees? I mean, sort of a out there theory, but still one to think of. I mean, every Schnee might be born with maybe dark hair and later gains white hair as they age, and it's just come sooner for the children. And then of course there's the portrait that's on the wall in Papa Schnee's study, on his back wall. Is that of him? Is that of his father, the grandfather that started the Schnee Dust Company? I'm not exactly sure, but this character still has dark black hair and doesn't really give off the Schnee traits, at least not yet. So it could be that the Schnee boys are born with dark hair and later gain white hair, or maybe Papa Schnee married into the family, took on the Schnee name, and then just fully embraced the Schnee-ness of everything. The other theory is a little bit more just crazy, but it does have some logical points. As we have seen, every Schnee has the same traits, the white hair and the blue eyes. And another thing to consider, all Schnees have a hereditary semblance. Now, who's to say what would happen if a Schnee married into another family that had another heretical semblance? What would happen? Which one would be the more dominant? And that's where this theory, I think, was birthed. What if the Schnees do some inbreeding to keep their line pure, if you will? Now, I know what I'm suggesting is real crazy. The Schnees going full Targaryen in RWBy. But to be honest, it isn't all that far-fetched. As much as I don't like the theory, it has its merits. As I said before, with the heretical semblance, and of course, the Schnee traits that seem to remain throughout all of the family of what we've seen so far. I mean, it's real crazy to think that such a pristine and, powerful family would, consider inbreeding, but then again, that happened a lot back in the day, back in medieval times, that royals would marry other royals to help keep their line pure royal blood. This might lead to why Whitley is so, weird, since inbreeding can just, sometimes mess and warp with people's minds, like how it does in Game of Thrones with the Targaryens. I mean, once again, it's a crazy theory, but it's definitely one that we should look out for and at least consider might be a possibility until we come up with a definite, linchpin that completely destroys the theory. But I have to thank my girlfriend Erin for coming up with these theories and talking to me about them, because they're actually pretty good. Alright, so enough theorizing for now, let's get back to the episode. So after we cut from Weiss, we then go to Team Ranger, but we see something. RWBy is dreaming, and we hear Pyrrha. Pyrrha is talking. She's saying, "Do you believe in destiny?" And then it seems that she's calling out for Jean. Now, later on in the episode, we hear her calling out for Jean even more. So let's take these two scenes and break them both down. So as we can see, it's pretty much a black dreamscape. Nothing much except for a few particle effects on the perimeter of the screen. Now, on the left side, we see silver colored, specks. And once again, my girlfriend pointed this out, on the right side, we see gold specks. Now, we can automatically assume that the silver could represent RWBy. Her eyes, silver-eyed warriors, all things like that. But the gold, what does the gold symbolize? Who is the gold? Well, if we remember, Pyrrha's pretty much secondary color was a gold color. So, could that possibly be Pyrrha's side of the dream, calling out to Jean? Now, in the dream, RWBy hears Pyrrha make her "Do you believe in destiny" speech. You know, well, just that line. But RWBy wasn't there. She only arrived at the top of the tower to see Pyrrha get shot. She didn't hear what Pyrrha said before that. So how does RWBy know what was said? And this brings up another theory. Could it be possible that somehow Pyrrha has her spirit has somehow latched herself on to RWBy and is trying to communicate with her somehow? Or maybe it's some form of possession? I mean, we don't have a lot to go on right now, but if what we can tell, it seems as if the spirit of Pyrrha is trying to communicate to Jean through RWBy somehow. Or at least trying to communicate to RWBy through dreams. And this kind of goes back to Pyrrha's talk back in Volume 1 about, you know, semblance, where she's like, you know, spouting things about this is how we gain immortality and all stuff like that. Who knows? Maybe Pyrrha was so strong that she somehow has a lingering presence somehow. But I'm getting ahead of myself and getting sidetracked once again. We need to talk about more of the episode. So, as RWBy wakes up from her dream, Team Ranger starts to set out again. As Team Ranger is traveling to the village of Schnee, we hear that Jean's family has visited this village many times before. So, Jean obviously knows this area, and that might mean that Jean grew up in Mantle, and maybe that's where his family is. And once again, we're reminded about Jean's 7 sisters, which I don't think is coincidence. I think that we're gonna at least at some point get to see some of his sisters, and by golly, I hope so. The stories that he has of him and his sisters in Schnee, about hiking trails and camping trips where he would get his own tent because he was special, and how his sisters would, you know, play with his hair as sisters do. You know, I'm pretty sure Rooster Teeth took inspiration from fan art that people made where, you know, the sisters are showing off baby pictures of Jean and he has like pigtails, because he talks about how, you know, they would put him in pigtails and a ponytail and all stuff like that. And to be honest, stuff like that is genuinely precious and funny, and we need to appreciate these precious moments. But it's automatically followed up with a sad scene, because we see that a village right in front of them is completely destroyed. Now, as they go to investigate this destroyed village, I'm pretty sure this isn't Schnee Village, even though Jean says that the next village is Schnee Village. Once again, villages pop up and fall all the time, so this could have been a new village, but the fact of the matter still remains that I don't think this is Schnee Village. Jean doesn't really make reference of it being Schnee Village or anything like that, so this is just destroyed village number 2? Yeah, 2. Now, it's actually in this village where I think we get a bit more development with Ren and Nora, which I just love, because as they enter the village, if you watch, you know, as, you know, Jean and RWBy are like looking around, they're like, oh, what happened? What's going on? Ren is just walking straight forward, just, you know, tunnel vision. He's just walking straight forward. He throws down his pack, almost as if he is angry or saddened at something. He is on a mission, and he then finds the wounded huntsman on the ground. This wounded huntsman says that what happened to this village was bandits attacked, and through the ensuing chaos, the Grimm then came, because once again, Grimm are attracted to negative emotions, and if bandits were attacking your town, I think you would have some pretty strong negative emotions. And it was in that attack that the village was destroyed. The bandits probably buggered out while the Grimm was finishing off the village. Team Ranger does their best to help the huntsman, but he ends up succumbing to his wounds, and, you know, everyone's pretty beat up about it, especially Jean. Jean seeing another person die, we see that he is, he's really beat up about whenever someone around him is going to fall or die. He takes death very seriously, especially when he believes he could have done something to stop it. So once again, we get some more development with Jean, which I love. Now, we see that bandits do indeed exist on the world of Remnant. They probably harass and attack villages for their resources, live outside of the law, and especially in the Kingdom of Mantle and that continent, they're going to be very easy to, live, it's easy to hide in Mantle. We heard Crow hear that, so there's probably plenty of hiding places where bandit clans can hide out, hide away, and survive on their own. Now, here's another big thing. When it's discussed that what should they do with the huntsman? Should they bury him? Ren just says, we should keep moving. He doesn't want to stay in this village anymore. He wants to leave. And then he sees a symbol engraved into the dirt. Now, obviously, it's probably a bandit symbol. And the way him and Nora look at it, it seems as though they recognize it, especially Ren. And this comes in with, what is Ren's backstory? Now, we already know that Ren and Nora wanted to shadow a sheriff of a village outside of the Kingdom of Vale back in Volume 2. And Jean tells Ren that they will shadow a sheriff and get to that village some other time once they head off into the Kingdom of Vale to help with the breach. And then, of course, at the beginning of Volume 3, how when Nora goes on to her rant about, losing the fight, she talks about how, her and Ren have no family or home to go back to. So, this suggests that Ren and Nora both lived in a village, and that village was attacked by bandits. And it's probably during this attack that their parents were killed. And then they were probably put in an orphanage where they were then grew up close together, decided to be huntsmen, and then started on the path of becoming huntsmen. Now, another variation of this idea is it was just Ren who lived in a village, and his village was destroyed by bandits, his parents were killed, and then he meets Nora in the orphanage, and then tells Nora about these bandits that attacked his town. Now, either way, both Nora and Ren have some form of conviction and hatred for bandits. So I think Team Ranger taking on this bandit tribe is going to be a subplot for this volume, which I am altogether for. Let's take down some baddies, let's see some development for Ren and Nora, and just this whole scene was awesome with just like what was gonna happen, symbolism. Great. Next, we transition back to Papa Schnee, and he is indeed having an argument with his old buddy, Ironwood. And this confirms that Ironwood is indeed the person who is in the intro with Papa Schnee. Now, Ironwood, he seems to have taken on like a different suit, and he has 5 o'clock shadow going on, makes him look like 10% more badass, by the way. And he's arguing with Papa Schnee. And it's here that we learn that Papa Schnee's first name is Jacques. Now, this speaks many things to me. Now, I'm not sure what Jacques truly means. Like, I know it's French, but Ironwood referring to Papa Schnee as Jacques shows how close their friendship is. Remember, he refers to Ozpin as Ozpin. Now, of course, that might mean that Ozpin is just Ozpin's name. He just has one name. But to everyone else who is a good friend of his, he refers to by their first name. Everyone else he refers to as Miss or Mrs., Miss Rose, Miss Schnee. But with Papa Schnee, he refers to him as Jacques. And, it makes sense due to the fact that the military and the Schnee Dust Company have worked together on a lot of projects, especially the Paladin mech suit. Now, these two friends are in an argument, and they're arguing about a trade embargo that has been set up on the Kingdom of Atlas and the Schnee Dust Company. It seems that Ironwood is restricting the shipment of dust to any of the other kingdoms for the time being, and that it has cost the Schnee Dust Company millions. While Papa Schnee doesn't really like this whole idea, he doesn't like it at all. You know, he's not making money, so why should he like it at all? And he says that the council isn't going to like this. He's going to talk to the council about this. But Ironwood drops the ball that he holds 2 seats on the council. Now, probably as the head of the military and the head of the academy. Those are probably the 2 seats that he covers. Now, this is showing Ironwood to having so much power. We already knew he had a bunch of power, but this just confirms it. And obviously, a lot of people are going to assume, well, he has so much power. He can pretty much control Atlas. He can do whatever he wants. Might be true, but I don't think this makes him a bad guy. So many people throughout Volume 2 and Volume 3 have tried to paint Ironwood as a bad guy. I've never seen him as a bad guy. He's just trying to do what he thinks is best for his people. It's stated that the reason he set up the embargo to make sure that no dust gets to the other kingdoms is to make sure that a war doesn't break out and that these kingdoms would have the armaments to go to war with Atlas. Now, it makes sense. Atlas was filmed, Atlas soldiers were filmed firing upon Vale and, citizens in Beacon, the Elysium Knights, that is. So, everyone's looking at Atlas with real wary eyes. Ironwood simply doesn't want to arm the people that might come after him if war breaks out. But you see, this dust embargo might be playing into the Chaos Syndicate's favor. All the other kingdoms are gonna be weakened by their lack of dust. They're not gonna have enough dust to protect themselves against Grim, enemy combatants, the White Fang. So, even though Ironwood is trying to do what he thinks is best, it might end up harming the rest of the world, and still painting Ironwood as being a bad guy. And probably the main reason why Ironwood still has a role on the council is because Atlas is so, paranoid, maybe even expecting the other kingdoms to go to war with it, and that they just need him on the council and still to be in charge. Papa Schnee says that he can't believe that the council still allows him to hold his power. But in times of crisis like these, where, one of the Huntsman Academies has fallen, the world is just real unsteady, and there might be bigger foes out there, Salem, to contend with, you're going to need someone in charge of the military that knows what they're doing, aka Ironwood. So, as Weiss enters the study, the argument with Ironwood subsidizes, and Ironwood goes to leave. Papa Schnee says that Klein will show him out, but Ironwood states that he's been here enough to know his way around, once again contributing to the friendship and the cooperation between the military and the company. It shows that he's been there so much that he knows his way around that big old mansion, which we've already seen is huge. Now, it's here that we get to see how Papa Schnee deals with his family, or at least his daughters. Now, he doesn't seem to be talking to Weiss from a fatherly standpoint. He is, stating facts to her and is manipulating her in ways. There's actually a scene where we can see that there is a picture on his desk of Whitley, but there's no other picture of any of his daughters, not even his wife on his desk, just the picture of his son. Once again, strengthening the idea that he has no respect for women and only cares about his son. His daughters are just the means to an end. He talks about how he wants to restore the Schnee Dust Company's, reputation to the people by giving a charity concert and inviting a bunch of people. And he wants Weiss to perform. To which Weiss asks, "Are you asking me or are you telling me that I'm going to perform?" To which he simply answers, everyone would love it. He doesn't give her a choice. He doesn't strictly say, "You're going to do it." He honeys his words and makes her do things that he wants her to do. Once again, she is just a pawn in his game. He doesn't, see her pretty much as a daughter. He sees her as a way to restore the Schnee family, the Schnee family honor, to restore, to just better his image. He's using Weiss. And that just makes him a despicable human being, in my opinion. But this does open up the opportunity for there to be a concert later on in this volume. Maybe we'll get to hear Weiss sing a new song besides Mirror Mirror, and it might possibly go sour if, certain bad guys go to such lengths as to, attack the concert. I mean, I'm just trying to predict the future here, but we have learned Papa Schnee is still a big scumbag. Weiss is going to be doing a concert, and, well, nobody likes Papa Schnee. Now, when Weiss exits her father's study, the butler Klein is there to offer her a cup of coffee and, a laugh or two. We see here that Klein has a few different sides to him. We see that, yes, he can be polite, but he can also be, kind of dark, kind of funny, and then kind of, just kind of mysterious. We see that he can change his eyes at will. We can see he changes his eyes at least 4 times, and each time he does, he seems to resort into a different personality or persona. So is it possible maybe he's some form of faunus that can do that? Maybe he has multiple personalities? Maybe he's just an actor, just trying to cheer Weiss up? Due to this short exchange between Klein and Weiss, we see that Klein seems to have been more of a fatherly, advice-giving, loving, caring person more than her own father. I think that she has a much greater connection to Klein than she does with pretty much maybe any of her family, except maybe Winter. Now, a lot of people are probably thinking, well, how can he change his eyes? The only people we've seen been able to do that is Neo. And before you go off your rocker and state, "Oh, Klein is Neo! Klein is Neo!" No, just think about it for a moment. It is a decent idea, but we've only seen Neo be able to change her outward appearance, like her clothing or her hair color or her eye color, yes. But we've never seen her change her physical appearance. We've never seen her turn, into a man. We've never seen her grow taller, grow shorter. She's always been the same stature, but just looked different. So I don't think Klein is Neo. No, that's kind of way out there. But perhaps Klein was, at least at one point, a huntsman, or at least has had some form of aura/semblance training. And this sort of splitting of his personalities, changing his eye color, is, him using his aura or using his semblance. Maybe, on top of being a butler, he's also maybe a form of bodyguard to the Schnee children, especially Weiss during her younger years. I mean, of what I think, Whitley was taken away by Papa Schnee and pretty much tutored by his father. Maybe Klein was doing the same thing, but for Weiss. Either way, I think this really adds a lot about Klein that I want to know more about him. Why can he change his eyes? Why does it seem he changes personalities? He could just be acting, to help Weiss feel better, or maybe it's some form of, funny mental problem, in which case it probably isn't funny and he should actually get some help. But But either way, I like Klein. And of course, we couldn't finish off the episode until we got back to Team Ranger. Now, I already talked about the second part of the dream sequences back earlier in the video. But RWBy awakes to from another dream where we hear Pyrrha calling out to Jean. And we see that Jean isn't in his sleeping bag, which, you know, makes perfect sense. If you're out in the wild, shouldn't there be someone on watch? All four of you shouldn't be sleeping at the same time, but, you know, maybe it was Jean's watch, and, you know, he was supposed to get RWBy next, but, you know, who knows? But the fact of the matter is, RWBy wakes up, sees Jean is missing, and then seems to hear Pyrrha's voice, so she gets up and goes to investigate. And she sees Jean practicing in a clearing to an audio recording, or a video recording would be better, of Pyrrha. She is, through the recording, teaching Jean some basic moves. And we see that when he's swinging his sword, he seems to be exerting his aura, because there's more power behind his swings, and he's being, you know, drained of energy the more he does it. So this is probably some more practice where he uses his aura to help strengthen his attacks, I believe. But this recording was made back before Pyrrha died. You know, just in case maybe she wasn't there to, you know, train Jean, or maybe she was just feeling under the weather, he could still train and she would still be there. And, you know, Rooster Teeth, we were just getting over the loss of Pyrrha, and now you bring this in, and you just reopen all those wounds. Thank you, Rooster Teeth, thank you. Pretty much the recording goes by, you know, Pyrrha, she, you know, tells Jean, you know, what to do, and then she kind of goes into a part where she's almost gonna tell him how she feels, but then she's like, oh, I'm just happy to be part of your life, and then, you know, Jean, you know, oh, feels so convicted because he didn't see it at the time, and, you know, RWBy just watches him, you know, go through this conviction, and I think this is definitely gonna open up some doors where RWBy is going to be more comforting to Jean, because she knows that he still feels guilty about the loss of Pyrrha and all that. So there may be some more, you know, close feelings being created between RWBy and Jean, which, you know, I would be fine with seeing, because they don't particularly need to be, you know, in a loving relationship, but maybe in a close friendship relationship. That would be really cool. Or maybe somehow Pyrrha is going to manifest herself in RWBy, somehow possessing RWBy's body and trying to get together with Jean. That's gonna be a crazy love triangle to go on there. But, you know, crazy thinking. Anyway, this episode ends with, oh, I almost forgot. Pyrrha's character is rendered in the old rendering. It isn't like the new, it's like back, like the recording that she made, we can see that it looks like it was made back during Volume 3. It was still that rendering style. So we're probably not going to see a Pyrrha sprite in Volume 4, because why not just, you know, have the Pyrrha Volume 4 sprite do the recording, you know. But I think having the old rendering animation there in that recording, you know, it was a real nice way to kind of give a shout out to the previous way it was rendered, which I think was really cool. But with that, the episode ends, and we're once again we are left to theorize, to break down, and to wait for next week. Hey everybody! I hope that you enjoyed this video. Be sure to leave a like and favorite if you did. Comment down below about anything you want to comment. Up here on screen, there's gonna be some links taking you to my social media pages, especially my Patreon page. If you want to support me monetarily there, it would help me out a lot. Big thanks to all my Patreon sponsors. You guys are awesome. I love you all. And also, check out these other videos that I've done. You know, I've been doing a lot of them lately, so hopefully one of them at least entertains you. So, until next time, my friends, I want you to be a good person, tip your waitresses, keep moving forward, and I'll see you guys next time. Yeah! And it's here that we hear That was terrible. Here is where we hear. I should come up with better vocabulary.